Good morning, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this new webinar by the ETF Skills Lab Network of Experts. My name is Najib Hamouti. I'm the region facilitator for the Southeast Mediterranean region at inside the network. And it is my pleasure to make this short introduction. First, to thank the speakers for having given from their time and having uh, afforded enough time to prepare and also to share this moment with our distinguished participants. And many thanks also to the audience, all those of you who have signed in and also are giving from their time to come here and share ideas on this topic. In the topic of the perception of vocational education has been quite imposing itself on us. We have, as you might have, if you had time to read the concept note, we tend to. It is a little bit problematic sometimes when in the region when a vet is not attracting enough young people compared to other regions. So our objective here is to diagnose this problematic, listen to successful experiences in promoting the image of a vet in the region. And also, we expect a very challenging comments and ideas from our audience in order to keep the discussion going. Without waiting, I let the floor to the coordinator of the network, Cristiana Burzio. Cristiana.
Thank you very much, Najib. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to this webinar of the Skills Lab Network on perception and image of vocational education training with a focus on the Southern and Eastern Mediterranean region. Before we enter the topic, let me just give a few updates on the Skills Lab Network. As most of you know, it was launched in 2021 with the aim to bring together in a common platform researchers and analysts in the field of skills demand and skills anticipation, who are all interested in discussing and exchanging on skills demand. We are now more than 900 members from ETF partner countries, member states, and even beyond. We had some months, the first month of the year, been intense. We had already the opportunity to discuss topics on specific angles of skills anticipation within 3 webinars. Today it's the 4th. We have looked at the impact of artificial intelligence on skills. We have looked at the dialogue between evidence and research and the policymakers. We looked into the impact of algorithms in the labor market. And today we are going to look at the image and the perception of vocational education and training, how it is impacting the outcomes in the labor market. We also had in March the live event of a network in Florence, from skills anticipation to policy action. And now we have still an intense plan ahead of us, including on the 25th of June, peer learning on returns on social investment. You will receive all the information very, very soon. One more piece of update about the sub-thematic community within the network on skills and migration, which is progressing with success. The call for paper has just led to the release of 2 publications that I will share in the chat, so for you to have a possibility to read. And a forum with the authors will take place tomorrow in Brussels. Now, let's enter into today's topic, so about that image. We know, as Najib also was anticipating, that in many contexts, vocational education and training still suffers from a low social perception and as a second choice stigma, as it keeps being perceived as inferior to academic route and a second choice route. Us at the ETF, we have a long experience working with partner countries on this topic, and we are helping to identify challenges in making that more trusted. And I have to say that from the work conducted, improving the image of vocational education and training is not only a communication issue, it is about dealing with quality, with labor market relevance and inclusiveness. Attractiveness of VET is about learning outcomes, is about clear progression pathways, links with the labor market, access to innovations and opportunities for learners. And it is also about meeting the expectations of many stakeholders, the learners, first of all, parents of learners, when we talk about students, employers and society. Therefore, at ETF, we try to promote a vision of vocational excellence in which education is learner-centered, so the learners at the center of education process, where education is connected to the world of work and it is embedded in wider skills ecosystem. I hope today's discussion will help to reflect not only on how that is perceived, but also on what it makes it valuable, visible, and trusted by all the actors I was referring to. Before giving the floor back to Najib and start our presentation, I suggest we take a group picture. If you wish to be in, just turn your camera on for a few seconds and then we go. And I ask Ada to tell us when it's done so that we can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ada. So, Najib, I give the floor back to you for presenting the first speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christiana. Just a housekeeping remark. Colleagues who are connected here from the region, especially, it is possible to activate immediate translation. You have at the bottom of the screen three dots. You click on the three dots and you have the icon of the earth. And this is where you click and you choose channel English to Arabic or Arabic to English. Okay, our speaker is the first speaker who will open the discussions is Mihailo Milanovic. Mihailo leads the work on data collection and the analysis of policy developments related to education, skills, and employment at the European Training Foundation. He is also the co-founder and pro bono affiliate of the Center for Applied Policy Integrity, a non-profit organization focused on integrity and integrity violations. He has done a lot of work in Central Asia, Eastern Europe, Latin America, and the MENA region. His current work focuses on the performance of vocational education and training systems in supporting lifelong learning, as well as integrity and policy appropriation in education. Mihailo will provide us with insights from the Torino process. Maybe he can start by saying what is Torino process, maybe for our colleagues who are not familiar with the concept. Then you can go for your presentation. Thank you very much, Mihailo, for your time.
Thanks for this comprehensive introduction. It reminds me that we have this, a detailed description of who we are on the ETF webpage, on LinkedIn, and other places. And so I actually forgot some of the functions and promises I made in my CV. So it's very good to get reminded about this, and essentially to sort of circle back to the most important, which is that at ETF and all the things I do in my professional life, we actually try to connect to different contexts, different countries, stakeholders like you, to understand to the extent possible what the situation is in different areas that are important for education and training. To do that, we collect information, evidence, data, and we try to make sense of that data. And the Torino process is one of these initiatives of the ETF. It has been around for quite a long time, 15 years now. And of course, in the course of these years, it has changed its, so to speak, its character, its profile, in the sense of, different thematic focus over the years, different ways of doing it. But essentially, it is a regular collection of information from countries with a more specific focus on VET, with the idea to document what policies are in place, and lately, in the past few years, not only what policies are in place, but also whether they deliver what is really expected. And so the Torino process is part of the ETF annual monitoring. It covers all the partner countries of the ETF. And these are also all the countries in what we call the CEMET region, South and East Mediterranean. What the topic of the day today is about the attractiveness of that. At the same time, if you see the title of my short intervention, it actually talks about lifelong learning systems. And so you might wonder, is this guy in the right meeting, or is this actually another topic? How does this connect to anything? And just to explain a little bit, is that the idea is to sort of set the stage and discuss lifelong learning in order to send the signal that one of the key reasons that we know of why vocational education is not the most attractive option in many of the countries we work with is because it's perceived as a dead end, as something that is isolated, as something that is somehow standalone pathway, which is not necessarily a pathway as good as many others. And so it is about isolation. And so discussing that and the attractiveness of that in the context of lifelong learning gives us an excuse to check and open the discussion towards the extent to which VET is part of a broader system of opportunities for learning. And this is why, during the meeting, you will have enough of possibility to go into the detail of different country case studies, such as Morocco. But here, the idea was to somehow set the stage by sending a reminder that, yes, talking about the attractiveness of VET, you're also talking about the attractiveness of VET as part of something bigger, as part of the opportunities which countries offer to different prospective learners, young, adult, old, to learn. So VET, attractiveness of VET discussed in isolation will not bring us very far. So in this way, I hope I justified a little bit why the topic is attractiveness of VET, and my intervention is about lifelong learning systems. And so in the next slide, I just want to say where all this information comes from. The annual monitoring of the ETF has essentially three major types of evidence. One is what we call KISA data. So these are really mostly international indicators from international sources, and some national level data which we collect. So these are quantitative indicators. Then we also complement this with so-called Torino process questionnaires. These are essentially national expert surveys where we ask experts about developments in different areas, such as access, quality, also VET attractiveness, yes. And we asked them to assess progress in these different areas. And then we use the data and these results of these surveys to compile what we call system performance indices for the different areas, where we essentially use this index to say whether the policies and arrangements in place deliver what is expected. And all of these is then presented every year in the form of country reporting. For every country, we have a short report. We call this country fiches. Every year, there's also a cross-country report. This is a report where we summarize the findings across all countries. And then we also have thematic reports. So we pick up one theme and we can look across countries what we know. For example, we can also prepare a thematic report on the attractiveness of it. So this is like the source of these insights. And so what I wanted to say in the next slide is that depending on who you are and where you come from, and I think we all here come from different areas, although we work sort of in the same sector, but we may have different institutions behind us, different perceptions, different experiences. So depending on who you are and where you work, the notion of a lifelong learning system may make you think about one element from this list or another. I don't think that many of us, when they hear lifelong learning and the lifelong learning system, think about all these things at the same time or somehow in the same way. So we all have our niche where we come from, and we tend to think either more about formal education or perhaps more about adult learning. There may be colleagues from employment who may connect this to employment services. In any case, this whole slide is to announce that the discussion here is not about lifelong learning as an abstract idea, but about lifelong learning as a system. And to have a list of education and training institutions or strategies, no matter how complete, this is not really yet a system. And so in the next slide, you can see that, in fact, the main question is not whether CEMET countries have institutions and providers and ideas, but whether all the things that are in place are somehow sufficiently connected to help people learn, return to learning, gain recognition, move on into further learning if they want, or into employment. And so it is really about, can we really kind of move across all of these elements which are in place, how transparent and how easy it is to actually enter, progress, leave, come back, transition to employment, and so on and so on. And so in this sense, this requires all these elements, the formal education, VET is an important example of formal education, initial VET, adult learning, the systems that are in place to recognize qualifications, to validate prior learning and all that. They really need to work together as a system and not only to coexist, which brings me to the next slide, which is, okay, what is the situation in your region? And I must say that the situation is not that different in other regions too, but still, now we're here to discuss the CEMET region. So from all the documents we have, from all the evidence we have analyzed in the previous years, but also in this last year, we know that there are a lot of building blocks, but they're not really yet fully connected systems of lifelong learning. And one of the reasons why these things are not really connected into a system is because this is not always a priority, but also we do not really have a consensus across countries, frankly, of what are the mandatory minimum elements of a lifelong learning system. Somehow, we know that a lifelong learning should somehow include formal education and initial VET, and these are usually the strongest and most visible parts of the lifelong learning universe in every country in your region. You, of course, all have some adult learning arrangements, but they're often fragmented. They're often project-based or donor-driven, or linked to some specific programs or sectors only. And so the links between the formal levels, the initial education, adult learning, and the employment services and recognition, they're not yet really strong. In some cases, they're in fact non-existent. There are, of course, also country examples. We'll hear about Morocco, which has a stronger framework for continuing learning. You also have an arrangement for training levy, and you also, as far as we know from our documents, developing secrets of trades and skills. You have also Tunisia as an example, where you have different adult learning instruments. There's also a strong VET reform agenda in Egypt. We're going to hear about this from Aziz through the Technical Education to Zero strategy, and of course the applied technology schools. But in general, one can say that despite all these initiatives across the region, adult learning is still very strongly focusing on literacy and basic education. And of course, in the region, you have contexts which are affected by crisis, and there the challenge to lifelong learning and adult learning specifically is even bigger, because in countries like Lebanon, Libya, and Palestine, there are learning opportunities, but they really are affected by instability, disruption in services, problems with infrastructure, and so on and so on. So discussing there the building of a coherent lifelong learning system comes with an additional challenge. In the next slide, you can see what this kind of lifelong learning opportunities look like in practice. If you're a young person, the main route, of course, is formal education. There is nothing special there, followed by upper secondary education, VET, tertiary education, or work. Nothing really exotic there. VET is still declared and functions as the main bridge between whatever education is supposed to deliver and the needs of the labor markets. And as I said, for adults, the learning often takes form of courses to raise the levels of literacy, short vocational training, reskilling, and so on and so on. Adult learning, and there's nothing wrong with that, but just to underline that adult learning is, of course, mostly practical in purpose across the region, and the focus is, yes, on literacy, on basic skills, on raising the chances for employment, and in some more rare cases, it's about digital skills and green skills. And of course, in the three countries I mentioned, it is also about crisis recovery. In my next slide, I want to say a few words what the data that we have tells us about how well these two blocks, the formal education, that is, let's say, for the youth, and adult learning, what they actually deliver. So in terms of access, in most countries, or in all countries, the right to access is guaranteed by law, but there are practical barriers to participation. And these barriers are nothing new. In many cases, this is cost. There may be issues with mobility. So this is kind of a rural-urban divide. There may be gender issues and so on. But this graph here shows you the System Performance Index results for 2025 for all countries ETF works with. And here in the square, I have highlighted the CEMET region. And what the graph is very busy, so I really apologize, because depending on the size of your screen, you may not really be able to see what is what. But you have here on this graph, we're showing how well policies and arrangements deliver access to young people, girls and boys, and to adults, men and women. And what this graph essentially says, what the data says, is that adults, nothing new here, really. I'm really sorry to come with a number of boring, well-known messages, but maybe it's helpful to just get this confirmed once again and get reminded. So adults across the region are much less likely to participate in learning than youth, and women are less likely to participate than men. Although I must say that in some of the countries in your region, there is no gender-based disadvantage in relation to access. Examples are Egypt or Jordan and Lebanon. In other countries, there is some gender disbalance in this respect. In the next slide, we're looking into what is the quality of what is being delivered. So we're talking here not about quality in general, we're really talking about quality of foundational skills and competences. So do the opportunities for learning for young people in VET, for instance, and the opportunities for learning for adults, do they manage to deliver foundational basic skills, literacy, numeracy, and so on? So you can see that foundational skills across the region are a challenge for young people and young graduates, irrespective of the gender. And interestingly enough, adults are more likely to have key competences, and our explanation for this discrepancy is that possibly this is because of experience that adults are gaining at the workplace. So in some countries, like Algeria, Palestine, or Jordan, system performance in support of quality of learning for women is somewhat weaker, but not dramatically so. In general, the main finding here is that often graduates from formal education, and VET in particular, leave their pathways not too well prepared for employment, nothing new here. But then by the time different surveys catch them as adults, this is to some extent compensated through the experiences, through the learning that they have experienced on the job. And the final slide is what does our evidence say about the way lifelong learning systems or elements of these systems are being managed? Of course, there's a limit to what the data can capture. And so this graph really reflects here what we know about formal education, general education, and initial VET specifically. So we don't know anything about the management or performance in the area of adult learning. This is not what this graph is showing. It's just showing what we know about the formal levels of education. And here we have taken 3 areas as a typical example. The areas are quality assurance, school leadership, and internationalization. And so you can see here that system performance, again, the square is the CEMET region, is quite uneven between the different domains of management we have chosen. Usually, in most countries, internationalization of that is the weakest element. So international exposure, partnerships, cooperation, exchange on the level of teachers and students, this is really one of the weakest areas. Despite efforts, this still remains one of the weakest areas of results. School leadership is also an area of weak results in many countries, although here the challenge is probably less whether school principals are good or bad, and more that we often do not really focus on them and we don't really know. And this, one of the side effects is that we also do not really have any clarity about what kind of indicators we should use to track the quality of school leadership. So school leadership is an area that is weak both in terms of performance and also in terms of awareness and evidence. And finally, quality assurance in most countries is an area of very strong system performance results. And this is somehow in contradiction or is at odds with the weak quality of learning that we have discussed in the previous slides. And so this could be a signal that, in fact, the quality assurance arrangements in many countries are more focused on compliance than on improvement. So it's not so much whether there are quality assurance arrangements in place on provider level, for instance. It is more about what is the purpose and what these quality assurance arrangements actually do. So the theory here is that this is more about compliance than it's about a real improvement. In conclusion, what are the things that we recommend in the next slide that we sort of tend to recommend to countries in the CEMET region? And I think some of these recommendations are really also valid for many of the other partner countries we have. And this is something that I think will resonate also with my colleague Aziz, is basically that we don't think that the CEMET countries need many more initiatives. I think that they actually need less initiatives, but better ones. And also there needs to be a much stronger connection between what is already in place and what is new. So there's also a need to, in fact, transition from the stage of piloting and testing things to really scaling up to the benefit of all learners in the VET systems. And there is also still more scope to provide better supports for learners at risk. Nothing new here, stronger links with employers. And we feel that the tracking of whether the reforms actually work and what they really achieve in practice could be stronger. So there's a need really for better follow-up on whether all the reforms and ideas actually work in practice and for whom. And this is all I wanted to share with you as a starter for this session.
Thank you very much, Mihailo. Very insightful indeed. And the conclusion was very attractive in terms of the recommendations that the report makes. I have a quick question maybe from Vardan. He's asking whether KIES is available publicly as a database. And the
Yes,
question is in,
I
yeah,
will share with you the link. The only thing that we still do not have, but we will promise it's gonna work very soon. Whatever soon may mean different things. One day, 1 year, but we really hope it's going to be very soon. So what you cannot do still from the database, you cannot really export the data. I think you can download it in the PDF format, but you cannot export tables. But the data itself is available, and I'll share the link in the chat now.
thank you. I don't know if you have a question from the audience. Of course, they can also take the floor, ask to take the floor if they want to ask the question to you directly or write in the chat. But a question from me, all these elements, they contribute somehow either to boost the image of and the perception of vet in society, but also some, if you like, deficiencies also may contribute to, let's say, to impacting the a good image of vet. And you have said that the region doesn't need initiatives, but need better initiatives. What would you suggest, for example, as an initiative for the region to promote that learning and with it the perception of vocational education? Just one, for example.
The countries are so different. I think that the way we group countries into region is a little bit more administrative and operational than it is real. So the countries in the CEMED region are so different. And also, like if you see, there are also countries where you really have a much more fragile environment. I think that in general there are like in some cases you really don't have issue with the attractiveness of vet, but you have an issue of whether vet can accommodate all the those who want to get there. So that's something that we need also to say. So not all countries are struggling with attractiveness in the same way. So I think that it is really two things. One is that in some cases there is a disbalance in the capacity to actually enroll people. So there sometimes the people who would like to maybe go to vet, they cannot because there is simply no opportunity around them. Another important thing is that there may be actually groups of learners, like we discussed here about disadvantaged learners and so on, that are really not reached properly. So there is, I think, potential for that. In any case, if one would not just open opportunity and let people come if they find the door, but if you proactively tell them where the door is and what this door where it leads to, you know. So I think that more proactive outreach and less inertia in terms of here's our vet system, please join us, would definitely help. Having said that, I also think that it is a little bit of a catch-22 discussion, the attractiveness discussion, because you cannot have attractiveness without changing a number of things which are well outside of the competence of decision makers and practitioners in vet. These are, social attitudes, what the families expect, what
Yes.
learners want. And so I think that's very important, this entire discussion about attractiveness, to not forget ourselves, that there are certain things we can do and other things which we cannot really do. So you can sort of promote and do things, but there is a limit to what is possible. And so I think that ultimately, if that delivers better quality and you have really opportunities to transition to employment, it's a long process of changing the minds and hearts of people. But it's not attractiveness per se as a priority. It is more about focusing on doing proper job, and then people sooner or later will notice.
That's great. Thank you very much. Just a technical question here. Bursu is saying that she can't reach to download the document. I also tried, and it sends you to a place where you have to log in with an account. Uh, yes, maybe there is a access condition to it or whatever. Okay.
Let me try that. I'll be figuring out while we speak.
Yes, and these webinars that we organize, of course, are also an opportunity to share insights and valuable reports with our participants and guests. So while you're doing this, and I hope Bursu and other colleagues can have access to the database of keys, I would like to transition to our next speaker, Mr. Mohammed Bouguido from Morocco. And of course, we thank him for his availability during the process of preparing this webinar and also today to take the floor. Dr. Bouguido is a research professor at the Faculty of Education Sciences at Mohammed V University in Rabat. He has built up professional experience in the fields of lifelong learning, the same as Mihailo, professional integration and migration issues. This is evidenced by his academic contributions in these fields and his work with a number of national and international institutions, including the Ministry of National Education, the ministry in charge of Moroccans living abroad, and the Migration Affairs, the European Union, and UNESCO, and also I think somehow ETF, because he knows one of our colleagues at ETF. Dr. Bugido, thank you very much for your time. I invite you to take the floor, and of course, we are looking forward to your insights on the topic. Thank you very much.
شكرا شكرا سي نجيب. سأدري هل تسمعونني؟ حسنا. شكرا.
Yes, yes, we can hear the interpretation in English as well.
حسنا. شكرا. أولا تحية طيبة للجميع، وأود أن أشكر ETF Skills Lab Network على هذه الدعوة. ما يشرفني ويسعدني كذلك أن أقدم أمامكم هذا العرض حول مبادرة تحسين صورة التكوين المهني بالمغرب، وذلك في إطار التفكير في موقع التكوين المهني داخل منظومة التربية والتكوين وسوق الشغل وعلاقته بالتنمية الاقتصادية والاجتماعية. فبالنسبة لهذا العرض سنمر إلى الشريحة الموالية. بالنسبة لهذا العرض سيتم تفصيله في 6 محاور. أولا سنتطرق إلى السياق العام، علاقته بصورة التكوين المهني بصفة عامة، ثم داخل المغرب كذلك. وكذلك سنتطرق إلى التكوين المهني بالمغرب من خلال المرجعيات الأساسية التي تؤثر السياسة التي تتعلق بالتكوين المهني، ثم كذلك ما هي الإنجازات والمبادرات التي تم تحقيقها علاقة بصورة التكوين المهني في المغرب، ثم نختم المداخلة بمجموعة ديال التحديات التي تعيق تلميع هذه الصورة في التكوين المهني داخل المغرب، وكذلك بعض الخلاصات من طبيعة الحال. فبالنسبة للشريحة الموالية التي سنتطرق فيها في السياق العام، نمر إلى الشريحة من فضلك. فهذا السياق يندرج في الولوج إلى التكوين المهني. وهنا سنقوم بمقارنة بسيطة، مقارنة ليس لها معنى من ناحية السياق، ولكن لها دلالة من الناحية العددية أو الرقمية. فكما تلاحظون هناك دول منظمة التعاون والتنمية الاقتصادية التي تصل فيها نسبة الملتحقين بالمسارات المهنية من تلاميذ التعليم الثانوي إلى 42%، بينما في المغرب لا تتعدى 15%. وهذا يعكس الفارق الذي يرتبط آه، ي- آه، جاذبية هذا المجال بالنسبة لدول منظمة التعاون الاقتصادي OCDE والمغرب من جهة. فبالنسبة لهذه المقارنة من طبيعة الحال تؤدي بنا إلى وضع سؤال حول ما هي أهمية التكوين المهني في مجموعة من الدول التي تشتغل على هذا المجال. فبالنسبة للشريحة الثانية، إذا سمحت من فضلك. بالنسبة لهذه الشريحة تبين تطور الصورة النمطية للتكوين المهني من الصورة التقليدية إلى الصورة التي تبين القيمة المضافة للتكوين المهني. فبالنسبة للصورة القديمة أو التقليدية للتكوين المهني، كان يرى أنه هو تكوين اضطراري للمتعثرين، أما اليوم فهو اختيار مهني عن قناعة في مجموعة من الدول ومجموعة من المجموعات الدولية. ثم بالنسبة للمكانة الاجتماعية للتكوين المهني، فقد كانت مكانة ضعيفة بالأمس، بينما اليوم تعتبر مكانة اجتماعية محترمة. وكذلك هناك محدودية الآفاق المهنية في القدم، بينما اليوم هناك آفاق مهنية واسعة، وهي مرتبطة كذلك بمجموعة من المهن الجديدة التي بدأت ترى النور مع تطور التكنولوجيا وتطور المجموعة من المجالات التي تؤدي إلى مهن جديدة. ثم هناك كذلك تطوير نظري بعيد عن الواقع في القدم، بينما اليوم تكوين عملي وتطبيقي عن طريق المقاربة بالكفايات التي يتم اعتمادها في هذا المجال. ثم هناك كذلك قطاعات تقليدية فقط كانت بالأمس ونرى فيها التكوين المهني كقطاع تقليدي يعتمد على مقاربة تقليدية، سواء من الناحية البيداغوجية أو من الناحية المقاربة الإدماجية في سوق الشغل كذلك. أما اليوم فهي مهن متنوعة ومهن المستقبل. لنمر إلى الشريحة الموالية من فضلك. شكرا. وفي هذا يكون التكوين المهني يشكل إحدى الرافعة الاستراتيجية لتحقيق التنمية الاقتصادية والاجتماعية، حيث أنه يشكل أحد المكونات الأساسية لمنظومة التربية والتكوين بالمغرب، وآلية استراتيجية لإعداد وتأهيل الموارد البشرية، وكذلك دعامة رئيسية لمواكبة التحولات الاقتصادية والاجتماعية، حيث أنه يدعم الاقتصاد الوطني ويمكن من زيادة الإنتاج ومواكبة الابتكار والتحول الرقمي، وكذلك تعزيز التشغيل والاندماج الاجتماعي وتطوير المهن والكفاءات وتلبية حاجية المقاولات من الكفاءات. نمر من فضلك. شكرا. بالنسبة لهذا المجال في المغرب، فهو يستند إلى ينبني على سياسات نمر من فضلك. سياسات آه، سياسات لها مرجعيات أساسية، وهي أولا تبدأ ب اعتبار رأس المال البشري والكفاءة المهنية ركيزة أساسية للتنافسية الاقتصادية والتنمية المستدامة، وكذلك جعل التكوين المهني أداة للاندماج الاقتصادي والاجتماعي، وكذلك مواكبة التحولات الاقتصادية والتكنولوجيا ومتطلبات المهن، وتكريس مبدأ الإنصاف المجالي والاجتماعي في الولوج إلى فرص التكوين، كما أنه يعزز كذلك التناسق بين سياسة التعلم وتكوين والتشغيل والاستثمار، وربط التكوين بالأوراش والاستراتيجيات الوطنية الكبرى. مثال: مخطط المغرب الأخضر، المغرب الرقمي، مخطط التسريع الصناعي وصناعة السيارات والطيران إلى غير ذلك من المجالات. نمر من فضلك. بالنسبة للمرجعيات التي يستند إليها هذا المجال، فهو يرتكز على دستور المملكة من جهة، الذي أشار بوضوح إلى ضرورة آه، تطوير التكوين المهني ضمن مجالات التكوين والتربية والتكوين. ثم هناك كذلك الرؤية الاستراتيجية التي ركزت في إحدى آه، أعمدتها على هذا المجال الخاص بالتكوين المهني. ثم كذلك قانون الإطار، وكذلك بعض الرسائل والخطب الملكية السامية. هنا لنبين أن هناك إرادة سياسية لتطوير هذا المجال ولتغيير صورته آه، النمطية التي نعيشها اليوم. ففي هذا الإطار هناك خارطة طريق للتكوين المهني تنبني على 5 محاور أساسية، وهي أولا تحديث عرض التكوين المهني، يعني أنه هناك عرض جديد للتكوين المهني يتوجه إلى كل ما هو تكنولوجي وما هو آه، آه، الاقتصاد الأخضر إلى غير ذلك. ثم هناك إنشاء جيل جديد من مؤسسات التكوين المهني التي ستتكلم حولها زميلتنا من مكتب التكوين المهني. وكذلك تحديث أساليب التكوين مع اعتماد معايير جديدة للجودة لضمان ملائمة التكوين مع حاجية ومتطلبات سوق الشغل. ثم توفير التكوين المهني للعمال الشباب في القطاع غير المهيكل، وتوفير التوجيه المبكر وتحسين جاذبية التكوين. هنا نكون قد قدمنا ال5 محاور الأساسية التي تنبني عليها خارطة الطريق بالمغرب. نمر للشريحة الموالية. هذه بالنسبة للمرجعيات. أما بالنسبة ما يمكن أن نسميه إنجازات أو مبادرات، خاصة تلك التي تتعلق بهدف تلميع صورة التكوين المهني في المغرب، فيمكن التحدث عن مجموعة من الإنجازات. من بينها من بينها أولا إطلاق مدن المهن والكفاءات، وهي تعتبر مشروع من أبرز الإصلاحات التي عرفها قطاع التكوين المهني بالمغرب، حيث فعلا تحاول أن تحسن صورة التكوين المهني وتطور جودته وتعزز تعزز القرب من المقاولة، حيث أنها لها بعد جهوي وبعد آه، محلي. ثم هناك الانفتاح كذلك على المهن الجديدة وتطوير الكفاءات المرتبطة. إذا كما تتميز هذه المدن بتجهيزات حديثة ومتطورة وفضاءات للابتكار وريادة الأعمال إلى غير ذلك، رغم أنها لم تكتمل من ناحية التغطية الجغرافية التي تمت برمجتها خلال إطلاق هذا الورش. لكن أظن أن هناك 3 مدن في طور الإنجاز ليتم استكمال هذا الورش. ثم هناك الإنجاز الثاني، وهو يتعلق بتطوير المقاربة بالكفايات. تطوير المقاربة بالكفايات من بين الإصلاحات كذلك الأساسية. نمر إلى معذرة. نمر إلى الشريحة الموالية من فضلك. فبالنسبة لتطوير المقاربة بالكفايات، تعتبر من بين الإصلاحات الأساسية التي تم اعتمادها، حيث تقوم على الانتقال من منطق نقل المعرفة بالنظرية إلى منطق بناء الكفايات المهنية والعملية. ويرتكز التكوين بشكل أكبر في هذه المقاربة على الكفايات المطلوبة داخل المقاولة، التعلم بالممارسة، التكييف مع وضعيات العمل، وحل المشكلات والمهارات التطبيقية. ثم هناك نقطة ثالثة وهي تتعلق بتوسيع التكوين بالتناوب. نمر من فضلك. توسيع التكوين بالتناوب، حيث أن التكوين يتم داخل المؤسسة من جهة، والتكوين داخل المقاولة من جهة أخرى. ويعتبر هذا النموذج من بين أكثر الصيغ فعالية في اكتساب الخبرة المهنية وتعزيز العلاقة مع عالم الشغل، ثم تطوير المهارات التطبيقية وتسهيل الإدماج المهني. وهو وقد عمل المغرب على توسيع هذا النموذج، لأنه يمكن فعلا الازدواج بين الاشتغال داخل المقاولة وكذلك التكوين في داخل المؤسسة التكوين المهني. ثم هناك النقطة الرابعة وهي إدراج الشعب الرقمية والكفاءات المستقبلية، لنمر إليها في الشريحة الموالية من فضلك. فهي في ظل التحولات التي يعرفها العالم، خاصة التحولات التكنولوجية والبيئية. بدأت منظومة التكوين المهني بالمغرب تنفتح على المهن الرقمية، خاصة في آه، المراكز التابعة لمدن المهن والكفاءات. كذلك هناك توجه نحو الذكاء الاصطناعي، الأمن السيبراني، الطاقات المتجددة، الاقتصاد الأخضر إلى غير ذلك. وهذا ما يعكس الرغبة في مواكبة مهن المستقبل، تعزيز تنافسية الاقتصاد، وتطوير كفاءات جديدة تستجيب للتحولات العالمية. ثم النقطة الأخيرة التي تتعلق بالمبادرات، هي تحديث البنيات والتجهيزات. ففي هذا المجال كاين هناك تحسين بيئة التكوين، وكذلك إحداث فضاءات المحاكاة، في عين المكان، يعني في داخل المقاولة، إدماج الوسائط الرقمية، يعني آه، كمانات الاشتغال داخل المؤسسات وداخل المقاولة، كذلك تحديث المعدات البيداغوجية وتطوير الورشات. وهذا النوع ال- من التحديث قد ساهم من تقريب المتدربين من بيئة العمل الحقيقية. من طبيعة الحال، هذا التحديث الذي تم في مجموعة من المؤسسات، ليس كل المؤسسات ولكن في مجموعة من المؤسسات، قد يمكن من تلميع كذلك صورة التكوين المهني، مقارنة مع بعض المؤسسات التي كانت في مجموعة من المناطق، أو في السنوات الماضية لها يعني ظروف غير لائقة، لا للتكوين ولا للاشتغال، خاصة داخل المؤسسات. وكذلك تحسين جودة التكوين وتعزيز جاذبية المؤسسات. هذه أمثلة لبعض ال يعني المبادرات التي يمكن أن نسميها مبادرات أو إنجازات لتحسين صورة التكوين المهني في المغرب. ولكن رغم هذه المجهودات فهناك تحديات كثيرة لنمر إليها في الشرائح المقبلة من فضلك. أولا، من بين التحديات هناك استمرار الهدر المدرسي. لماذا الهدر المدرسي في هذا الجانب؟ نقول أن الهدر المدرسي قد يصل إلى 300 ألف تلميذ تقريبا سنويا يغادرون المؤسسات التعليمية. وهذا الرقم يبقى رقما مؤولا، لأنه يشكل فيما يتعلق بالتكوين المهني ضغطا مباشرا على منظومة التكوين المهني. فكل من يتعثر في هذا الجانب، يعني من جانب المدرسة، يحاول الالتحاق بالتكوين المهني، خاصة على مستوى المسارات المتعلقة بالتخصص، لا سبيسياليزاسيون، أو التأهيل المهني، عكس من طبيعة الحال التخصصات التي تتعلق ب متخصص أو ما فوق، لأن هناك إقبال على هذه التخصصات، بينما التخصص أو تأهيل الكاليفيكاسيون يبقى تخصصا آه، يلج إليه ذو كفاءات محدودة من ناحية التحصيل المدرسي. إذا هناك تدفق أعداد كبيرة من المتقاطعين عن الدراسة نحو هذا المسار، الذي يرسل صورته كخيار اضطراري أو مسار بديل للفشل بدل اعتباره مسار للتميز. فهناك كذلك فئة من الشباب 15 24 سنة، الذين لا يتواجدون لا بالمدرسة ولا في تكوين ما، ولا يشتغلون ما نسميه لينت، والذين يبلغ عددهم حوالي 1.5 مليون شاب وشابة في سنة 2022، حسب الدراسات التي قام بها قامت بها المندوبية السامية للتخطيط والمجلس الاقتصادي والاجتماعي. فمن طبيعة الحال لما نرى هذا الوضعية، نقول أنه لا يمكن أن نساهم في تلميع صورة التكوين المهني، رغم أن التكوين المهني في هذه الحالة ليس هو المسؤول عن الوضعية، ولكن إلى أي حد يمكن للتكوين المهني أن يس أن يس أن 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 يساهم في يعني في معالجة هذه الإشكالية. بالنسبة للتحدي الثاني وهو يتعلق باستمرار ارتفاع معدل البطالة، نجده في الشريحة الموالية. فبالنسبة للتكوين المهني فهو ليس مجرد تكوين، بل قضية تشغيل. وكما تلاحظون في هذه الشريحة هناك ارتفاع في معدل البطالة من 9.5 سنة 2018 مثلا إلى 13.3 سنة 2024. وهناك كذلك تفاوت في هذه النسبة بين الرجال والنساء، حيث هناك كذلك ارتفاع على مستوى فئة النساء من 18.3 إلى 19.4، أي ب 1.1 نقطة، بينما عند الرجال هناك ارتفاع بنسبة 0.1 نقطة. وهناك آه، بلغ معدل البطالة لدى الشباب المتراوح أعمارهم بين 15 و 24 سنة 36.7 في المئة، مقابل 35 في سنة 2023، يعني بزيادة نقطة مئوية في ظرف سنتين. وهو ما يصعب الولوج إلى أول فرصة من طبيعة الحال، لما نرى أن نسبة مهمة من العاطلين لم يسبق لهم أن يشتغلوا فقط، حيث أنه 70% لدى الحاصلين على شهادة عليا بما في ذلك البكالوريا لم يسبق لهم أن يشتغلوا. هذه الوضعية تجعل صورة قطاع التربية والتكوين بصفة عامة بما فيها التكوين المهني تتآكل بشكل متزايد لدى فئة واسعة من الشباب ومن العائلات إلى غير ذلك. ثم نمر إلى التحدي الثالث الذي يساهم كذلك في إضعاف صورة التكوين المهني بالنسبة للمغرب. نمر إلى الشريحة الموالية، وهو ضعف التعلمات الأساسية. هناك دراسات وطنية ودراسات دولية تبين أن هناك عدد كبير من التلاميذ يغادرون المدرسة دون أدنى اكتساب المهارات الأساسية من الناحية القراءة والرياضيات والعلوم إلى غير ذلك. فهذا يؤثر ويضعف التعلمات الأساسية التي نحتاج لها كمتطلبات قبلية بالنسبة للتكوين المهني للبيدغوكي. وهنا نجد
مم.
بعض نجد بعض ال- المؤسسات التي آه، تستقطب التلاميذ ليس لديهم أي كفاية أساسية بالنسبة للقراءة والكتابة والحساب. آه، في في-
شكرا.
في-
هل
هل
أتممتم يا أستاذي الكريم؟ لأن عندنا مداخلات أخرى.
أوكي أوكي أوكي. أظن
شكرا.
ن- 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 أظن
ولدي سؤال.
نعم، مرحبا مرحبا.
جزاك الله خيرا. شكرا. شكرا جزيلا أستاذ محمد على هذا التغطية تقريبا الشاملة لموضوع مسألة جاذبية التكوين المهني، بالأخص لدى الشباب وحتى لغير الشباب. ما أراه أستاذي، وهذه فكرة أريد أن أجربها معك.
نعم
إذا نظرنا إلى الواقع فأرى أن هناك تضارب في الآراء. فالواقع الاقتصادي والمقاولات للمغرب الذي تفضلتم تغطيته في مداخلتكم، هو أن التكوين المهني ساهم إلى حد كبير في آه، اجتذاب آه، شركات كبرى في الطيران، في صناعة السيارات، صناعة الطيارات إلى آخره. ولكن في نفس الوقت هناك صورة شيئا ما سلبية لنفس هذا التكوين الذي يقوم بدور يعني
نعم
قيمة مضافة ومساهمة في الاقتصاد وشغل استدراج يعني الاستثمارات الخارجية. الشركات الكبرى تثق في البلاد لأن هناك يعني سواعد، هناك تقنيين، هناك أخصائيين. فما
نعم.
رأيكم أستاذي الكريم في هذه الفكرة؟
شكرا. سنجيب على هذا السؤال الذي فعلا يمكن أن يجعلنا في مفارقة عجيبة حول هذا الموضوع. ولكن كما أشرت إليه قبل قليل، فهناك يعني شذبية كبيرة بالنسبة للتخصصات أو المسارات العليا التي تتعلق مثلا بتقني متخصص أو تقني، يعني التي نجدها في هذه الحالات ديال التكوين المهني في مجالات الطيران، مجالات الصناعة، مجالات السياحة، مجالات إلى غير ذلك. بينما الصورة التي نتحدث عليها والتي هي نمطية والتي لها علاقة بالفئات المستهدفة وبعض الفئات الهشة من ناحية ديال التكوين، فهي مسارات تتعلق بالتأهيل و... وكذلك آه، يعني المسارات الدنيا في سلم التكوين المهني.
شكرا جزيلا أستاذي محمد. وطبعا هناك ستكون لنا آه، يعني تبادل آراء. فهناك ضيوف معنا من تونس ومصر ومن أظن الأردن كذلك. ربما قد يريدون المساهمة في النقاش بعد ذلك. آه، اسمحوا لي أعود إلى اللغة الإنجليزية. I would like to thank our next speaker, Nezha, for being patient with us because we have done some 5 minutes late to give her the floor. We are happy to welcome Mrs. Nezha Ghazwani from OFPPT, which is the National Agency, Moroccan National Agency of Vocational Education. And Mrs. Nezha is now acting director of research and training design at the OFPPT, and Morocco's leading public vocational training institution. Business How, with over 20 years of experience in the field of vocational training, has led numerous strategic initiatives in training design, program development, training capacity building, and innovation in learning methods. She is actually involved in a national and international cooperation projects aimed at strengthening skills development and employability. During this webinar, Mrs. Ha, she will present one of the flagship programs in Morocco, which is the Cities of Skills and Trades. In Arabic, Professor Mohammed referred to it as a model كفاءات والمهن. Mrs. Nzha, the floor is yours. Mrs. Nzha will speak in French, but we will maintain a translation to English and Arabic. Thank you very much.
Merci, Monsieur Najib. Heureuse d'être parmi vous durant ce webinaire. Comme je le suis toujours dans tous les événements qui sont organisés par l'ETF. Alors, comme vous avez dit, je vais parler des cités des métiers et des compétences, un programme qui a été instauré dans le cadre de la nouvelle feuille de route du développement de la formation professionnelle. Alors, d'abord, next please. D'abord, je vais vous présenter, s'il vous plaît, prochaine slide, please. Alors, ma présentation sera articulée autour de 4 axes. Je vais vous présenter brièvement l'Office de la formation professionnelle et de la promotion du travail, la nouvelle feuille de route pour le développement de la formation professionnelle, le concept des CMC comme étant des locomotives de l'excellence, et après, je vais faire un focus sur une des CMC, qui est la CMC, la Cité des métiers et des compétences Rabat, Salé, Kénitra. Next. Alors, next, please. L'OFPT, je vais vous présenter l'OFPT comme étant le premier opérateur de la formation professionnelle au Maroc, avec plus de 50 ans. Nous sommes nés en 1974. Alors, il offre plus de 90% de l'offre de la formation professionnelle publique au Maroc et 69% de l'offre de formation publique et privée. Nous sommes sur tout le Maroc, tout le royaume, avec plus de 500 établissements de formation professionnelle. En 2025, nous sommes arrivés à démarrer 9 cités des métiers et des compétences. Les 3 restantes sont en cours. Nous sommes aussi sur je dirais, les domaines pénitentiaires. Nous existons aussi au niveau des prisons et nous avons 24 unités mobiles de formation qui desservent les parties lointaines du Maroc. Alors, pour les inscrits durant l'année de formation 2025-2026, nous avons 418 660 stagiaires inscrits. Chez nous, les étudiants sont appelés stagiaires. Alors, nous formons sur 463 filières de formation couvrant pratiquement l'ensemble des secteurs de formation socio-économique. À l'OFPT, nous sommes 9 900 collaborateurs, dont 6 720 formateurs. Et nous sommes appuyés par des vacataires, 5 000 vacataires qui sont des professionnels qui interviennent occasionnellement dans la formation. Next. Notre offre de formation, comme j'ai précisé, cette année, c'est 418 660 places pédagogiques. On est 2 types ou bien 3 types de formations. Les formations diplômantes, des formations qualifiantes et des parcours professionnels. Notre offre est composée de 65% de formations diplômantes, 28% formation qualifiante et 7% en parcours professionnel, qui sont des parcours qui sont développés avec le ministère de l'Éducation nationale. Donc, pour les formations diplômantes. Nous touchons quatre niveaux de formation diplômante. Le niveau le plus bas, comme a précisé notre collègue Bougidou, c'est le niveau spécialisation. Il est offert aux élèves qui sortent du primaire, le niveau qualification des élèves qui sortent du collège, le niveau technicien des élèves qui ont eu leur formation pendant la dernière année du baccalauréat ou bien du high school. Et le niveau technicien spécialisé, il est offert aux élèves qui ont reçu leur baccalauréat. Pour les formations qualifiantes, nous offrons des formations qualifiantes de tout horizon avec des durées allant de 3 jours à 9 mois de formation. Donc, notre formation initiale, elle s'offre à des publics qui sont âgés de 15 ans à 30 ans. Next. Nous aussi, nous prestons pour les entreprises. Euh, on a une offre dédiée aux travailleurs en entreprise. Et pour les entreprises marocaines, nous offrons une ingénierie de formation, c'est-à-dire pour designer les formations pour les employés. Nous offrons des formations à l'intérieur des entreprises et nous conseillons aussi les recruteurs, c'est-à-dire les entreprises qui veulent recruter. Next. Alors, depuis Next Please, à la nouvelle feuille de route qui représente c'est déjà une stratégie qui a été amorcée suite à la directive royale depuis le 4 avril 2019. Comme a précisé M. Bouguidou, cette feuille de route elle s'articule autour de 4 projets, autour de 5 projets. Le premier projet, c'est la mise à niveau de l'offre de formation. Le deuxième projet, création d'une nouvelle génération de centres de formation, et c'est le sujet de notre présentation aujourd'hui. Le troisième projet, c'est la modernisation des méthodes pédagogiques et adoption de nouveaux standards de qualité. Le quatrième projet, c'est la professionnalisation des jeunes travailleurs dans l'informel et ou en recherche d'emploi, notamment à travers les formations qualifiantes de courte durée. Et le cinquième projet, c'est l'orientation précoce et amélioration de l'attractivité de la formation professionnelle. Pour ce cinquième projet, pour l'orientation précoce, nous avons adopté une plateforme pour l'orientation des jeunes bon, qui est offerte à tout le public gratuitement pour s'orienter vers la formation professionnelle et pour leur décrire qu'est-ce que c'est que la formation professionnelle et ainsi pour augmenter l'attractivité des jeunes vers la formation professionnelle. Next. Alors, pour mettre en place ou bien, et accompagner cette stratégie, nous avons conçu un nouveau modèle pédagogique et nous l'avons co-conçu, nous l'avons co-construit avec, en interne, avec les équipes internes de l'Office de la formation professionnelle, mais aussi avec les professionnels. Donc, ce nouveau modèle pédagogique, il est basé sur 10 règles d'or. D'abord, l'approche par compétence. L'adoption de l'approche par compétence dans la formation, dans le design des programmes, mais aussi dans l'axe de formation. Cette approche qui prône le learning by doing et nous optons pour la majorité des filières pour 60% de pratique dans la formation professionnelle. Nous avons la deuxième règle d'or, ce sont des contenus actualisés qui prennent en compte l'évolution technologique, la transformation digitale et le verdissement des métiers. Troisième règle, une nouvelle architecture des programmes en adoptant les troncs communs qui permettent aux stagiaires et aux formés d'avoir une pluri, un ancrage dans le métier d'abord et de leur permettre d'être pluridisciplinaires. Et au bout du tronc commun, ils peuvent se spécialiser. Ceci leur permettra de pouvoir apprendre tout au long de la vie. Durant la première partie du programme, le tronc commun, nos stagiaires apprennent les compétences transversales, notamment tout ce qui est digital, tout ce qui est soft skills et ainsi de suite, pour qu'ils puissent auto-apprendre et apprendre par eux-mêmes pour qu'ils puissent changer d'horizon au bout de leur parcours. Alors, nous avons renforcé les parcours, notamment pour tout ce qui est le tourisme et le secteur du tourisme, hôtellerie-restauration, la gestion et le commerce. Ce sont deux secteurs pour lesquels nous avons ajouté un semestre dans la formation. Initialement, les formations duraient 2 ans. Nous avons ajouté un semestre pour ces parcours afin de permettre aux stagiaires de ces deux secteurs de formation de s'approprier les techniques de tout ce qui est de langue, de communication et de soft skills. Dans le cadre de la feuille de route, nous avons assuré un encadrement rapproché en réduisant l'effectif des stagiaires par groupe de formation. La 6e règle d'or, c'est que nous avons revu tous nos programmes et uniformiser la masse horaire de la formation annuelle qui est actuellement de 900 heures par an et en dédiant 30% de ce programme, de la masse horaire de ce programme aux soft skills. Ce qui me ramène à la 7e règle d'or. Nous avons valorisé les soft skills. Pour les soft skills, nous avons développé les compétences linguistiques, entrepreneuriales, numériques et comportementales. Et la 8e règle d'or, qui est essentielle et qui favorise l'apprentissage tout au long de la vie, nous avons consolidé les passerelles entre les niveaux inférieurs, niveaux supérieurs, à l'intérieur du secteur de formation, mais aussi entre secteurs de formation. Nous avons adopté des modes de formation diversifiés, notamment à travers le e-learning, et l'adoption de plateformes de formation. Nous avons aussi, et nous essayons toujours de renforcer la formation par alternance dont a parlé M. Bouguidou. Alors, la formation par alternance qui revêt une importance primordiale pour l'OFPT et qui est là depuis 1996 et s'est vu renforcée dans le cadre de la nouvelle feuille de route de la formation professionnelle. La 10e règle d'or et la dernière, c'est nous avons opté pour des apprentissages ludiques. Nous essayons de mettre le stagiaire comme acteur de son développement de ses compétences à travers de nouvelles méthodes pédagogiques, ludiques, libératrices d'énergie et en adoptant des digital tools. Next, please. Alors, comme nous avons conçu notre modèle pédagogique et nous avons conçu aussi ce que nous appelons en interne une maisonnette qui a été érigée pour accompagner la feuille de route et pour structurer l'intervention de l'OFPT dans cette nouvelle feuille de route. Alors, donc cette maisonnette, elle se base sur déjà une excellence opérationnelle à travers un processus et outils de gestion maîtrisés maîtrisés à travers le pilotage de la performance axée sur les résultats et l'ouverture sur l'écosystème pour un service de qualité aux jeunes et aux entreprises. Les piliers de cette maisonnette sont de nombre de 3. Alors, le premier pilier, c'est une nouvelle offre de formation et le nouveau modèle pédagogique. Le deuxième pilier, c'est des espaces pédagogiques modernes et un capital humain qualifié et valorisé à travers une formation en continu pour que notre capital humain et spécialement nos formateurs et les dirigeants des établissements de formation professionnelle soient à la page et soient informés de nouveautés et immergés dans les secteurs, dans l'entreprise marocaine. Alors, next please. Alors, le troisième pilier que je viens de vous présenter, c'est les espaces pédagogiques modernes. Euh, euh, nous avons érigé les cités des métiers et des compétences. Ces cités des métiers et des compétences sont de nouveaux établissements qui sont ancrés dans l'environnement l'environnement régional et local. Next, please. Alors, les cités des métiers et des compétences, ou ce que nous appelons les CMC, leur objectif, c'est augmenter l'employabilité des jeunes, créer des valeurs, de la valeur au niveau territorial, aider et appuyer la compétitivité des entreprises. Elles sont aussi la locomotive du nouveau modèle pédagogique, du nouveau modèle de développement du Maroc. Next. Alors, ces cités des métiers et des compétences, elles offrent une offre de formation actualisée, des espaces pédagogiques modernes, un capital humain valorisé. Ce sont les piliers de la nouvelle feuille de route elles sont constituées de structures communes, des pôles métiers et des espaces de vie. Next. Alors, le programme des cités des métiers et des compétences prévoit de mettre en place 12 cités des métiers et des compétences dans 12 régions territoriales du Maroc. Chaque région territoriale possède sa cité des métiers et des compétences. Elle offre 34 000 places pédagogiques. Le financement de ces 12 cités de métiers et de compétences s'élève à 3,6 milliards de dirhams et elle touche 13 secteurs socio-économiques, dont 6 nouveaux secteurs de formation qui n'ont pas été touchés, qui n'ont pas été touchés par l'OFPT avant, notamment la pêche. Nous avons ajouté des secteurs, la pêche, la santé, l'artisanat, l'agriculture, l'intelligence artificielle et j'en passe. Alors, il y a aussi des internats qui sont dédiés aux stagiaires en formation et qui sont issus des régions lointaines à travers 5 500 lits et couverts. Et elles ont été étoffées par 8 antennes, notamment des établissements sectoriels, notamment des établissements dédiés à l'agroalimentaire, à la santé, au transport logistique, etc. Next. Alors, comme je vous ai dit, les CMC, elles sont sur 12 régions. 9 CMC, 9 cités des métiers et des compétences ont déjà démarré et 3, elles vont démarrer en septembre 2026. Next. Alors, pour prendre, on va prendre un exemple, c'est celui de la Cité des métiers et des compétences, Rabat Salé Kenitra, qui a été inaugurée par Sa Majesté. Next. Alors, la Cité des métiers et des compétences de Rabat Salé Kenitra, elle a été le budget qui a nécessité, qui a été déboursé pour l'iriger s'élève à 400 millions de dirhams. Elle offre 3560 places pédagogiques, 6 pôles métiers et elle est érigée sur 10 hectares. Elle offre 79 filières de formation euh, plus 26 qui sont constitués, qui sont localisés dans le pôle. C'est un établissement de formation professionnelle dédié au métier de la santé. L'internat, elle ouvre 700 lits. Next. Alors, son offre de formation est constituée des secteurs suivants: le digital et l'intelligence artificielle, gestion commerce, l'industrie, l'agro-industrie, tourisme, hôtellerie, restauration, services à la personne, agriculture et la santé. Alors, l'agro-industrie et la santé constituent des secteurs qui sont abrités par des établissements sectoriels. Nous avons un établissement sectoriel dédié à l'agro-industrie au niveau de Kenitra, qui est une ville proche de Rabat, Salé et Kenitra, et un autre établissement dédié au métier de la santé qui est sur Rabat. Next. Alors, ceci est une vue d'ensemble des différents pôles qui constituent la cité des métiers et des compétences, en plus des structures communes, de l'administration et des espaces de vie. Next. Alors, donc, pour les espaces pédagogiques qui existent au niveau de la Cité des métiers et des compétences de Rabat, il y a bien sûr les salles de cours, il y a des ateliers laboratoires techniques, salles multimédia et Living Labs. Next. Alors, les cités des métiers et des compétences regroupe aussi des espaces pédagogiques et des plateformes d'application qui sont des plateformes, des infrastructures qui favorisent l'apprentissage immersif et interactif au niveau de la formation professionnelle. Alors, nous avons une usine pédagogique. Cette usine pédagogique fonctionne comme une unité de production avec une organisation similaire de la réalité de l'entreprise, incluant l'exploitation, la maintenance, le marketing et le commerce. Cette usine est l'opportunité pour les stagiaires de différents secteurs d'appliquer l'appliquer ce qu'ils apprennent au niveau de la formation professionnelle et de l'appliquer comme s'ils sont dans une situation réelle. L'hôtel, de même, l'hôtel et le restaurant pédagogique, aussi, c'est une plateforme d'application. Elle est parfaitement équipée pour des expériences d'apprentissage et des simulations réelles. L'hôtel offre une opportunité idéale aux stagiaires pour s'immerger dès la première année de formation dans un univers professionnel à travers des chambres pédagogiques qui permettent aux stagiaires d'appliquer ce qu'ils ont appris. Aussi, la
Madame
ferme
Elsa,
pédagogique.
est-ce que vous pouvez conclure, s'il vous plaît? Nous avons atteint le
euh,
temps alloué à votre présentation.
euh, 3 minutes.
3 minutes, ok, pas de
D'accord.
problème.
Digital Factory aussi, c'est un pôle qui est du pôle Digital Intelligence Artificielle. Il permet aux stagiaires d'expérimenter les idées autour de solutions digitales. L'entreprise virtuelle et la crèche et appartements pédagogiques aussi, ce sont des établissements, des structures qui permettent aux stagiaires d'appliquer leur formation dans un univers proche de la réalité. Next. les équipements de dernière génération qui sont mis en place au niveau de la Cité des métiers et des compétences. Next. Les structures communes permettent aux stagiaires d'avoir de s'orienter à travers un espace d'orientation, des centres de conférences et centres de langue et des espaces soft skills. Next. Les maisons des stagiaires, comme je vous ai déjà expliqué, à travers l'internat, les terrains de sport et les cafétérias. Next. Ce lien vous permettra de visualiser un film institutionnel sur le programme des cités et des métiers et de compétences. Et je conclus par dire que les cités des métiers et des compétences, c'est un programme en- euh, euh, qui a favorisé déjà l'attractivité des stagiaires et des élèves vers la formation professionnelle et qui a modernisé la perception qu'a les Marocains sur le système de la formation professionnelle au Maroc. Je vous remercie et je reste à votre disposition pour toute question. Merci beaucoup.
Merci infiniment, Madame Nzha, pour cette brillante présentation, d'avoir partagé tous les aspects liés à la promotion de l'image de la formation professionnelle du pays que vous avez dit, c'est-à-dire au Maroc, avec un focus sur les cités des métiers et des compétences. En fait, il y a beaucoup d'idées sur ça. Je retiens ce qui est très positif, c'est que je pense pour la première fois, nous avons des internats pour les stagiaires de la formation professionnelle. Ça, c'est une chose, je pense que ça n'existait pas avant et ça, je pense que ça pourrait contribuer à justement la promotion de l'image de la formation professionnelle. Et il y a eu également l'intégration de la bourse dans la formation professionnelle qui aussi n'existait pas avant. Et ça, je pense que c'était un geste très fort de la part des autorités publiques concernant le renforcement de l'image et de la perception de la formation professionnelle. Si vous me permettez, j'ai un commentaire en anglais. I will switch to English. We have a comment from Barteline. She says, this is very interesting. I'm reading the comment to you. As far as TV's promotion campaigns go, I saw a really effective one in Scotland. They just showed average income of a plumber versus someone with a higher education degree in the country next to each other. The plumber clearly won. I mean, what was basically only those figures telling so much. Of course, when it comes to concrete example, I think this is a starking one because it's a question of income. And Martin also says in Belgium, a very popular soap opera also feature characters with TV skills and show their qualities, value, and income working on public image. I'm happy that we have these instances. Maybe they can also inspire our colleagues in research and also at OFPPT how we can use all these media tools to promote the image of vet in society. And in Canada, for example, they have an issue, uh, which is that there are more people asking to follow what they call the college itinerary than the theoretical one, which is university. So there is more demand from students to follow the itinerary of vocational education and also higher vocational education. Et juste une question, Madame Nza, avant que je donne la parole à Monsieur Jéwan, qui est très patient avec nous, je le remercie. Comment est-ce que les parents et les médias en général ont accueilli ce programme de CMC au Maroc?
Merci Sinajib. Alors, juste une précision. Les internats existaient à l'OFPT depuis longtemps, mais
Ah, d'accord,
oui, avec l'arrivée des cités des métiers et des compétences, nous avons augmenté les places, les lits.
d'accord.
mais et notamment, les internats existaient dans des régions, dans les établissements qui sont dans des régions un peu lointaines, hors
Rural.
Rabat, hors l'axe Rabat-Casa, Tanger. Alors, pour vous dire, l'attractivité, elle a augmenté, soit au niveau pour les stagiaires, soit pour les parents, soit pour les médias, et pour un simple indicateur. Pour, par exemple, une place pédagogique au niveau des cités des métiers et des compétences, on peut avoir 5 demandes pour chaque place, et même 10 demandes
Wow.
pour chaque place, notamment pour les métiers de la santé qui connaissent un engouement réel pour voilà, des élèves et des prospects. Donc, et pour les médias, bien sûr, nous sommes maintenant sur les télévisions et il y a les spots qui sont tout le temps, surtout durant cette période d'inscription donc, et de campagne d'admission. Ça a été accueilli avec vraiment,
Merci beaucoup.
oui, je dirais que et je préciserai que nous ne sommes pas arrêtés là. Nous sommes en train de mettre à niveau les autres centres de formation parce que nous sommes
Oui.
nés en 74. Donc, nous avons un programme de mise à niveau de tous nos centres de formation pour que tous
Merci.
les régions, tous les stagiaires bénéficient des mêmes structures, des mêmes programmes, sachant que les programmes qui sont dispensés au niveau des cités des métiers et des compétences, et notamment les formations diplômantes, sont les mêmes, parce que ce sont des formations étatiques, sont les mêmes qui sont
Oui.
dispensées au niveau des autres centres de formation. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Sarazwani. Ça a été vraiment un plaisir. Et sans
Plaisir est pour moi.
transition, without transition, and I would like to apologize to Mr. Aziz for making him wait. Mr. Aziz, the floor is yours, and sorry for the delay.
Non, en fait, je voulais poser une question, mais bon, si on n'a pas le temps, on va passer. Je voulais poser une question à Elsa parce que moi, j'ai vu qu'elle n'a pas parlé de la gouvernance et le financement. Et j'ai vu aussi que quand même, un CMC, ça coûte 400 millions de dirhams. Pour les participants, c'est à peu près 40 millions d'euros pour un établissement. C'est beaucoup. Donc, je voulais poser une question sur la pérennisation de ces initiatives-là. Mais bon, on n'a pas le temps, je vois qu'on est en retard, donc je vais passer à ma présentation. Sorry, I will switch in English. So first of all, thank you, Najib and Christiana, for the opportunity to contribute to this discussion. And hello, everyone. So I will focus in my presentation on the example of Egypt and how centers of excellence, like the ones that we have seen for Morocco, that they are called the applied technology schools, that I will explain what is, can help improve the attractiveness and social perception of technical education in Egypt. So I think that the Egyptian example shows that perception can change when TVET is associated with quality, strong employers' involvement, recognized qualifications, and also very important real opportunities for learners, including international mobility, which is important, very important in Samad region. So the key question is not why the applied technology schools are attractive. It is also about how Egypt can use Egypt and Morocco in this case, because we were talking about Morocco, they can use this success, let's say, to improve the wider TVET system. So I will start by a quick reminder of what mean the attractiveness, and then move to the ATS example and the broader policy challenges for Egypt. ATS is the acronym of Applied Technology Schools I will be using during my presentation. I need also to say that the previous presentation have provided some valuable evidence and insights that will help better position the concept of attractiveness within this TVET reform. and the importance of systemic approaches. This is very important, which will be, in fact, my main objective to focus on in this presentation. And don't worry, I have only, Najib, I have only 4 slides, and I will try to be brief, very brief. So slide, please. So first, what is the concept of attractiveness? So attractiveness is often, and we see it in in this morning, is often measured through participation rates in VET compared with general education. So this percentage is always the most important indicators in measuring attractiveness. Of course, this indicator is useful, but it's not sufficient. So it tells us about how many learners are in VET, but not why they choose it, whether families value it, or whether employers, a very important, trust its outcomes, as Christiana highlighted in the introduction of this event. So a high share of learners in VET can mean and hide very different realities. So it can mean that VET is a positive choice because it leads to jobs, progression, and good opportunities, etc. But it can also mean that VET is seen as the easiest or the only route to higher education. And this is often the case in many countries that has been highlighted, even the concept note in Eastern Europe, for example, etc., which is, sometimes is the real reason. So they use the VET stream is just to access to higher education. Or in some cases that young people have no real alternative in general education, in the national general education. And this is also in many countries, this is the case. So it is important to be aware of this element when benchmarking countries or sectors in this case. So attractiveness is therefore a broader value proposition. For youth, it is about identity, motivation, career prospects, incomes, and mobility. Mobility, as I said in the beginning, international mobility is very important for youth, for example. So if the stream allow them, like health, Nazha mentioned health in Morocco, that they have 10 candidates for one post, because it also is their international mobility, certainly, amongst others, maybe. For parents, it is about social status, of course, safety, progression to higher education, and life chance, etc. For employers, it is about competence, effectiveness, work readiness, productivity, trust, etc. And for the system at all, it is about quality and quality assurance also. Inclusion is very important. See, Mohammed Bougidou has mentioned this. Even they have very good pilots and innovative initiatives. We have a part of the population which is left behind because it's not included in this. So this is very important for the system also, the equity and the inclusion, the excellence and labor market relevance, of course. So the key question here is not only how many students enter VET. The real question is why do they choose it? What do they get from it? And how to trust it. So this is, I think, very important. Slide, please. So to measure the attractiveness, we need more than the enrollment statistics. We need to combine different types of evidences, bringing together administrative data, surveys, and labor market evidence. So the demand is key signal. Of course, the demand first is a key signal of attractiveness, obviously. It can be measured by looking at how many candidates apply for each available place, le taux d'affluence as presented by Nezha, by sectors, schools, program. High demand usually shows that learners and families value the offer but it must be interpreted, how to say, carefully, because it may reflect quality, reputation, employer links, access to higher education, or expectation of good jobs. So it should therefore be combined with indicators such selectivity, waiting lists, dropouts that Mikhailo mentioned in the beginning in his presentation, completion, and regional availability. The second element is we need to measure the perception. So how young people, parents, and employees see VET and whether they would recommend it. So this, the perception or the social perception of VET is very important. Fourth, we need to measure outcomes, access to employment, decent work, wages, very important, higher education access, and international mobility. Finally, we need to measure equity. Again, Morocco example, gender, rural access, inclusion, and the risk of creating elite islands only, which is the case in this initiative, unfortunately. So surveys are essential because they help us understand, which unfortunately we don't find surveys about social perception of VET in our countries. So I think this is very important to understand the real motivation behind the choices. They help distinguishing between TVET as a default option, as I said in the beginning, and VET as a real opportunity. They also capture the confidence of families, learners, and employers. So this is why ETF is supporting Egypt in moving from intuition to evidence of VET attractiveness. The support for the ETF support in Egypt is focusing now. We are working in perception surveys to launch in September, October, let's say, so that this dimension become visible and measurable and useful, of course, for the policy makers. Slide, please. So let's move to the example of Egypt. So the applied technology schools, ATSs, in Egypt are a very strong example of how the image of technical education can change. They show what or when the offer is credible, families and young people can value technical education very highly. And this is really a concrete case. So applied technology schools are employer-partnered centers of excellence within Egypt technical education system. They now represent about 100 schools in Egypt. But be careful about figures because in Egypt, we have more than 2,000 technical schools in the all. So it's really a very, very small, by highly visible parts of the system. So their specificities lies in strong company involvement, more specialized programs, higher quality standards, recognized qualification, and clear pathways to higher education that you can access when you go through ATS. You can access easily higher education through what is called in Egypt the technological universities. So it's a little bit more or less what we found in Morocco as well through the EGDs, so this management delegated institute, les instituts de gestion délégués. But the contract is between a big company in Egypt and a center, not between a sector and the center. So this virtuous cycle that you can see in my slide is a very high demand. ETS receive more than 40 candidates for each available place. Just to give you an idea, in Morocco, she said 6 to 10. So it's not necessarily a good thing. Of course, it means that the attractiveness is very high because young people is asking for this training. But we will see that has its negative sides as well. This is a very obviously strong signal of awareness and shows that VET can become a first choice when it is associated with quality, opportunity, and trust. So strong demand attracts motivated and highly performing learners, of course. because when you have 40 candidates, you can select, the selection is very high, so you will get the top of the candidates. And good learners and high quality training improve results, of course. And better results increase employer trust. And employer trust improve job opportunities, obviously. And this improve the image of technical education even further. So this is really a virtuous cycle, very important. But we have, of course, a risk that has been also mentioned in the presentation of Sir Mohammed, is that excellence must not become an elite track only. So here we have only the best of the best that are acceding these good schools, let's say. Slide, please. So this is my last slide. So and now here is my main message for this event is that the real challenge is to move from successful pilot to system maturity. So and sustainability and etc. So in other words, excellence need to become systemic, and systemic is very important, inclusive and measurable. So what is unfortunately not the case in many countries in CEMED region. So of course this is easier said than done. But in many CEMED countries, we see many innovative pilots, often supported by donors or specific projects, that remain disconnected from the wider system. They may produce good results locally, but they are not always mainstreamed, institutionalized, or used to improve the system as a whole. So this is very important to be careful about mainstreaming these pilots and this innovative initiative. So the key question here again is not only how to create center of excellence, but how to use them as drivers for system improvement. And I think this is very important. But what needs to happen to make this transition possible? So first, the model needs to be clearly defined and documented, as you can see in the steps in the slide. This means clarifying the standards, governance arrangements, employer roles, quality assurance mechanism, and the conditions that make the model work so that it can be adapted and progressively extended to other schools. The second is scaling must preserve equity. And this is also a very important point, the equity, so that the opportunities are not limited to the best students or the most advantageous regions, because sometimes we select the capital to do this innovative, and we forget about the remote regions in the country. Third, pathways must be strengthened. Pathways, Mikhailo addressed this, is very, very important for youth to have the possibility to access to higher levels and higher education. Also to decent work, of course, mobility and lifelong learning, as presented by Mikhailo and Mohammed. The lifelong learning in its biggest meaning means that in addition to the erosion, the recognition of prior learning and all these elements that have been already presented. And fourth, the image of VET must be measured regularly through surveys and indicators in the monitoring framework. And I addressed this, the measurement is also very important. So, and this is also where the Egyptian technical education, the TE 2.0 strategy that ETF supported Egypt to develop it. Now it is developed, it is validated, I mean, provide really, and because the perception and attractiveness are not treated in this strategy as communication extra, like Christiana said in the beginning, but it is a part of the reform itself. just to let you know that the social perception, we call it social perception and internationalization, because as I said, internationalization is very important for youth, the mobility, I mean, in terms of mobility. So, and we have one out of 6 pillars. The strategy has 6 pillars. One of these pillars is about social perception of technical education. So I will finish my presentation by saying that here we have also that ETF is contributing to this transition. So we are helping, as I said in the beginning, the development of the survey. But my final message would be that centers of excellence value is not only to be excellent, but to help the whole system become better, more trusted, and more attractive. And I will stop here. Sorry if I was late.
Thank you very much. It is really a very impressive case, which is the ATS in Egypt. And of course, there is a dimension of internationalization, which you focused on, and also that you also defined what do we mean exactly by attractiveness, which is also very useful for us. I have comment from, but we have just 2 minutes left. So Nikas is asking a question in the chat. Which institutions have set up and managed the system as we understand it? Such a setup is meant to facilitate the effective preparation and channeling of the labor market entrance to the Egyptian economy. Is this the case? Yes or no? Yes.
Yes, it is the case. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So another Salama, many thanks, Aziz. Such interesting presentation about ATS. I totally agree with you. The sustainability is very critical point to consider in parallel with ensuring excellence in the vet. Yes, I have another query of public-private partnerships are notoriously difficult to sustain. PPP, the 3 Ps. Maybe you have an opinion about this, but I'm sorry, maybe you can answer him in the chat. We have only 2 minutes, and I would like to invite Christiana for the concluding remarks.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Nadim.
Sorry,
I would
Aziz.
leave Aziz to reply maybe briefly to Nader on this point of public-private partnership. I prefer to give the floor to the discussion when I will be shorter in my closing.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Christiana. PPP are extremely important for sustainability indeed, Sinader. I would say the opposite is that the partnership with the private sector make the quality sustainable and not the other ways around. It's for that, it was my question for Morocco, to say the financing, for example, and the governance, 2 things. The states, in our experience in the region and in other regions of ETF partner countries, is that the state cannot fund alone the vet system. They cannot, so it's not sustainable. So you need to diversify the financing. And to diversify the financing, the main opportunity is the private sector. This is the first thing. And when the private sector is involved financially, his interest for the vet is increasing. So, and then he is giving feedback that will improve the quality of vet system. So this partnership, Morocco is an example. Morocco, the lobbying of private sector in Morocco, for example, they make a lot of pressure on the OFPPT and on the state in general to improve the quality. They have all this, because they made this pressure. So the involvement of when we PPP, it's really by excellence the best way to improve the quality and the sustainability of the financing, which is the financing is really very, very important in these cases. For example, now in Egypt, we have some problems to upscale this ATS because they cost a lot of money. So, and the state, they don't have enough money to generalize this good initiative to all schools. So PPP is the solution for me to increase the quality and the sustainability of vet in a given country, in all countries. Christiana,
Thank you, Aziz. I see there is in the chat also Professor Adel Ahmed, who would like maybe to take the floor. asking to give a feedback regarding ATS.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes,
Hello? Yes,
we heard you,
we can hear
Yeah.
you.
Professor.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much for the very excellent, nice presentations actually regarding TIVET perception and TIVET image and so on. Uh, I am a professor in the electrical engineering department. I was a project director for one of the major projects actually between Egypt and Germany regarding establishing what we called integrated technical education clusters. The technical education clusters actually based on a system 3 plus 2 plus 2. The first 3 is technical secondary school, and 2 plus 2 is like technological faculties. Yeah. So this system actually has been started in Egypt under the complete supervision of Education Development Fund Cabinet of Ministers since 2009. And so we have at least 5 of these clusters till now, and it has been established with international cooperation with Germany, with England, with Italy. And so it is actually the real milestones in reforming TIVET system in Egypt because we import actually the system, the TIVET system in these international or these international partners, which, as I mentioned, Germany, UK, and Italy. This system, after that, it is has been used or scaled up through the Minister of Education to establish the Applied Technological School. So the model of Applied Technological School based actually on the TSS Technical Secondary School system of the ITEX. Moreover, all the technological universities in Egypt used or implement the 2 plus 2 system, which is also the second and third phase of the ITEX. This is another point. Actually, in Egypt, we are trying to by developing such ITEX, we need to develop Egyptian dual education system, Egyptian one, because we cannot implement actually the German model. As you know, it is very expensive. It's not easy to implement. And as Mr. Aziz mentioned, we have more than 2,000 technical schools in Egypt. And so we should concentrate more on how to actually to develop those 2,000 schools rather than to scaling up the applied technological schools, which is a very good way to have another pathway actually or a parallel way with the technical secondary school. But we have 2,000 technical schools, and we should concentrate how to develop and upgrade those schools to make the gap between it and between them and the labor market very narrow, because this is a problem. We have a very big gap between the schools and the labor market, which is not the case actually for the applied technological school, because they have already international industrial partner, which make this gap a little bit very narrow. So, I mean, when you are talking about applied technological school, please, it is like the ice mountain. Yeah, you see only the top of the mountain, but down there is the basic of this applied technological school. It was not more than scaling up of the integrated technical education clusters. Thank you very much.
As answer, because we don't have time, I would invite Christiana to share the Torino process report that we have done, Christiana, in Egypt, and where we are. I agree with you 100%. And this was my main message to say that this is only the peak of the iceberg, like you are saying. So, and the SS, in this case, the standard schools are, so this is really was my main message. But how to do it? So we have provided some recommendation in this Torino process. Really, a real recommendation. It was about ETS. It's only an assessment about the internationalization of ETS, and we are providing very interesting recommendation on how to make them to move from, as I said, from pilot to maturity. So please, Christiana, if you can share
Thank
with
you.
participants, because we don't have time to explain all what we have proposed for this. But I agree with you, Dr. Abdel Ahmed, absolutely 100%.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, Aziz. Thank you for this discussion. I'm sorry we need to close because we are already late, so we have taken your time. But I suggest that we share also after this webinar additional insights and comments because we had a limited time today and the discussion was taking off. But there will be opportunities. We keep in touch via email, via our LinkedIn group. I just would like to share, okay, I have taken some to-do list from my side. So we will prepare an event summary after this webinar. We will post all the presentations from the speakers in ETF Open Space. When everything will be available, you will receive a message with a link to the ETF Open Space, so you can go through the presentations again and the summary as well. And I will also include the link to the report that Aziz was mentioning. It's a policy review that ETF prepared, finalized last year on the ATS in Egypt, where ETF has been requested to look at the internationalization aspects of this model. So we will share all these links in the event summary. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you all speakers. Thank you all participants. Thanks a lot to the interpreters today, to Chiara and Deda for helping with the organization of this event, and look forward to be in contact soon. And we stay connected also through the LinkedIn group, and see you soon. Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you. Bye.